What is a cult? And are Jehovah's Witnesses considered to be a cult? There's going to be a lot of screenshots of all the articles that are going to be mentioned. Pause wherever and read it all the way through. And also the reference location will be visible. You can go to JW's library and read the entire article for yourself.
In 1994, there was an article entitled Cults, What Are They? Cults are generally understood to be religious groups with radical views and practices that clash with what is accepted today as normal social behavior.
Blood transfusions could fall under that.
Mm-hmm.
To take a scripture out of context and translate it to meaning literally abstain from blood, even though that's what it's intended for, to sustain life. It's intended to give life.
Yeah.
You're supposed to abstain from it. What about when the children lose their teeth and they start to bleed and swallow it?
Get a cut on your finger and you put your finger in your mouth.
Yeah.
Their devotion to a self-proclaimed human leader is likely to be unconditional and exclusive.
Are Jehovah's Witnesses devoted to a self-proclaimed human leader? No.
Of course not.
It's like 8 of them.
Right.
The governing body.
The governing body.
There's 8
self-proclaimed. That are self-proclaimed. Technically, they were elected by other self-proclaimed leaders and then became part of the governing body.
Right. You're not supposed to question who proclaims to be anointed.
Right.
I mean, it could be Granny Green or it can be the guy in charge, but you don't question it, and
right.
It's their relationship with Jehovah, and they know whether or not they are.
Right. Absolutely.
Be determined to stick to Jehovah's organization and loyally support the leadership he provides, no matter what imperfections may surface.
At the time, the life-saving direction we receive from Jehovah's organization may not appear practical from a human standpoint. All of us must be ready to obey any instructions we may receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not. Again, exclusive, unconditional devotion to whatever they tell you.
Search through Watchtower Library for the phrase "only one" quickly shows how often they claim to be the one true religion on earth. Jehovah is using only one organization today to accomplish his will. To receive everlasting life in the earthly paradise, we must identify that organization and serve God as part of it.
Your only chance to evacuate is to leave with us. Planet Earth about to be recycled.
Please get us some medication. It's simple, there's no convulsions with it, it's just simple. Just please get it. Before it's too late, the GDF will be here. I tell you, get moving, get moving, get moving. If these people land out here, they'll torture some of our children here. They'll torture our people, they'll torture our seniors. We cannot have this.
Your only chance to survive is to leave with us. And that's pretty major statement, pretty bold in terms of religion, in terms of anybody's intelligent thinking. To most people who would consider themselves intelligent beings,
all of us must be ready to obey any instructions we may receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not.
They'd say, well, that's absurd. What's all this doomsday stuff?
But Jehovah is giving us escape instructions. In 2 Peter 3:12 about this system, it says that it's going to be destroyed in flames and the elements will melt in the intense heat. But we want to survive. Continue inclined toward Jehovah's directions that will come at that time. So it's absolutely required, if we're not going to drift away from Jehovah or the truth, we've got to pay more than the usual attention. Now, if we do this, use our sense of hearing wisely, as we've discussed, then we'll be in position to survive the cataclysmic end of this system of things.
Often these leaders boast of having been divinely chosen or even of being themselves divine in nature.
I don't know what they call it anymore. Organized to accomplish our ministry? It used to be organized to do Jehovah's Will, and I found my dusty old copy under my nightstand, which is important because they have a revised version that was 2019, 14 years later. Why trust the faithful and discreet slave? There are many reasons to have complete trust in the slave class. First and foremost, Jesus has appointed them over all his precious belongings. This is a clear indication that he has complete trust in them. God's word admonishes Christians to cooperate fully with those taking the lead. You obey those humans. Okay, so the 2019 revised version, well, what did they change? Well, if you start in paragraph 8, it says, during the Great Tribulation, when Jesus comes to pronounce and execute judgment on this wicked system, he will appoint the faithful slave over all his belongings. Oh, so he hasn't yet. He's going to. So you got to listen to them until then. The point is, he hasn't chosen them yet, but he will. It is vital for us to be obedient and submissive to direction from those taking the lead, because they keep watch over us for our spiritual protection and well-being. Is that creepy at all?
Obedient and submissive. Other words can be used as exclusive.
Unconditional, exclusive. Just as Jesus used a group of men rather than an individual to take the lead in the first century, the faithful slave that Jesus uses during the conclusion of this system of things is not one man. It's 8. It's 8 of them. I love that they had to put that in there. It's a group of men, not an individual, because they know that's the criteria of what a cult is. People who follow a man.
Right. Would it be accurate to refer to Jehovah's Witnesses as a small, fringe religious group?
Well, there's 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses. Not too few, but there's...
When you compare that with other religions.
1.2 billion Catholics. Comparatively, yeah, they're kind of small.
Even compared to other religions like Buddhism has 535 million people. Taoism has 12 million people. Islam 1.9 billion. Hinduism 1.2 billion.
1.9 billion?
So really, Jehovah's Witnesses are a pretty small group. When you tell people who've never been Jehovah's Witnesses some of the things that you've endured as one, it tends to make them step back and go, wow, that's pretty crazy. And if that doesn't say fringe group, I don't know what does. Cult members often isolate themselves from friends, family, and even society in general. Is that the case with Jehovah's Witnesses?
They use scriptures to justify physical, actual fear of association with anyone who is not a Jehovah's Witness, or as they call it, worldly. They are encouraged to strengthen their determination to maintain themselves active in Jehovah's service, as well as to remain clean and separate from the world. And mind you, they take it literally. Separate from the world.
Right. You don't hang out with people from work or from school. They're not your friends. You don't go out to have a beer with a coworker after work. You don't go to school functions that are outside of school hours. Like, you're not supposed to extracurricular activities, because that would unnecessarily open you up to associating with people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses.
There was even a drama where the Jehovah's Witness woman was conflicted with having to spend her lunch hour with her coworkers.
Yeah.
But over time, the conversations grew, and everyone had a viewpoint.
There's some things in the scriptures that I think...
I still thought I could give a witness and actually teach them something about Jehovah.
Honey, it doesn't work like that.
But in reality, I was the one being taught. I was sure their thinking wasn't rubbing off on me. The girls knew that Robert and I had had a small disagreement that morning, and he was calling to apologize, although some of it was my fault.
Karen, did you want to get a little coffee? If you don't want to talk to him now, then don't. Besides, it sounds like he could use a little silent treatment.
I couldn't believe the effect the association was having on my attitude and my marriage.
But what could you do? You worked with them every day, and you were able to give a witness sometimes.
But I had let it turn into regular, unnecessary association.
They say a thrilling future awaits for those who remain separate in the world. They say it's far better to have only a few associates that love Jehovah than to associate with many who may turn you away from God. Be content with your Christian brother's company.
May turn you away. Not will turn you away, but they may.
Yeah.
They might turn you away.
They might turn you away from this organization. Jehovah God himself. And that's pretty tricky language too. Your Christian brothers literally means only Jehovah's Witnesses. because they call other so-called Christians belong to Christendom. So so-called Christian association is the same thing as being an apostate or somebody who leaves the organization. Joining the YMCA is having worldly association and becoming an apostate.
Which is funny because joining this as a member accepts or endorses the general objectives and principles of the organization. Now, just that one statement right there, and then the last one, for Jehovah's Witnesses to become a member of a so-called association would amount to apostasy.
So they did that when they
did that when they joined the United Nations. So it's like...
Wait. So you're the apostate, so we better leave, right?
Right. So who's really the apostate now?
I mean, if you do a word search on the Watchtower online library for a worldly association, you'll see how often they apply that warning to their members.
Are witnesses using deceptive and unethical techniques to recruit members?
Deceptive preaching methods? In the 50s, Jehovah's Witnesses published Watchtowers expressing how they understood Greer's Bible translation was apparently spiritistic. Yet, they relied on his translation to support their own interpretation of John 1:1 and Matthew 27 verses 52 and 53. And this is the Bible that they preach door to door with, and those verses change the whole meaning of how Jesus is being referred to. But in the 80s, they claimed they only had just discovered its close rapport with Spiritism, and then that's why they stopped using it. So that's a deception. What about unethical recruitment methods? Jehovah's Witnesses are systematically taught how to preach at least once a week, as if they're salesmen offering a pitch. They call it the Theocratic Ministry School, and it covers everything from conversation stoppers. If a person doesn't even want to talk about God, they have ways of getting people to talk and to get your pitch in there.
They're also taught to be observant of the surroundings when you first walk into somebody's yard. Do they have a really well-tended garden? How can you tailor your pitch to include that? Oh, I see you have a wonderful looking garden here. Wouldn't it be nice if you could make the whole world this beautiful?
You're supposed to avoid the association with worldly people, but you can't avoid public interaction with them, such as when you're at the store or on your commute. So you need to use those opportunities to weave a presentation into your daily conversations. And finally, Jehovah's Witnesses are encouraged to use a personal tragedy or a tragedy in the media to make their presentation. Sounds a little unethical to use the
personal tragedies of people to recruit them into your organization. Cult leaders are known to use manipulative methods to control the minds of their followers. Is there any evidence that Jehovah's Witnesses do this? There's been a couple of articles I can remember growing up where they were like, brainwashing? We don't do brainwashing. That is a cult thing, and we are not a cult.
Oh man, I remember at a convention where they said, and if we do brainwash, that would be a wonderful thing to have a clean mind.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Like they twisted that around to be like brainwashing.
This is good brainwashing.
This is good for you! So while they definitively deny controlling thoughts, they say each person is responsible for adjusting their own thinking to view things the way Jehovah does.
It's really brilliant how they word a lot of their literature. They don't always come out and say, there's a lot of times where instead of saying don't do that, they say a good Christian wouldn't want to put themselves in that situation. And then you say to yourself, well, God, I want to be a good Christian, so I don't want to do that.
A mature Christian tries to look at things from Jehovah's point of view and make wise decisions. Wise, mature,
good.
So even if your situation is as serious as being the victim of crimes like rape, robbery, and child abuse, you're told to seek counsel from the literature and to share with a mature listener. Remember how they like that word mature Christian? They group that word mature with Christian or Jehovah's Witnesses, not the police. Don't go to the police, go to a mature Christian.
Yep.
Awake magazine, for example, has published a number of articles that give practical advice to victims of rape, robbery, and child abuse. Sharing your anxieties and feelings with a mature, empathetic listener can be of much help. Perhaps you can confide in your parents. But what if parental support is not available? Then seek support from the Christian congregation. I'm sorry, shouldn't you go to the police if you've been a victim of a crime? Don't forget, too, that other mature Christians can serve as brothers and sisters and mothers to you. So if your mothers and sisters and brothers are not Jehovah's Witnesses, don't go to them. Go to the Jehovah's Witnesses who can step in and replace them. If we love and trust God, we will follow His advice in all situations. We will obey Him even when it is difficult for us. It is good for us to obey Jehovah because He teaches us how to have a good life now and promises us that we will enjoy many blessings in the future. Mind you, they liken Jehovah God with the words of the interpretation of the Bible through Watchtower publications. When they say to obey Jehovah, it's by obeying the direction of the faithful and discreet slave as if it was God's own voice. Parents are pressured to get their children baptized as young as possible. They go as far as to instruct you to limit your exposure to programs and reading material. They liken Watchtower instruction to Jehovah's thinking and warn you to limit where you're receiving your information. Propaganda is likely to be most effective, says one source, if people ... are discouraged from thinking critically. Media and society in the 20th century. So they twist your thinking to rely on only Watchtower's information. So they quote media and society in the 20th century, and I've got the book. Propaganda is likely to be most effective if people do not have access to multiple sources of information, and if they are discouraged from thinking critically. Michael Balfour has suggested that the best touchstone for distinguishing propaganda from science is whether a plurality of sources of information and of interpretations is being discouraged or fostered. So the expert book that they quote from, in order to substantiate their teaching, is literally condemning them in the very sentence that they left out.
Is their worship cloaked in secrecy? So the elders in congregation are those who are appointed by the governing body to be the leaders of the congregation. They're the ones who are there to enforce the rules.
If somebody does something wrong, 2 or 3 of them will form what's called a judicial committee to speak to that person, and that person alone. You're not allowed to have a lawyer or a confidant there with you. They're likened to shepherds who are controlling the flock of each congregation.
So they have a book called Shepherd the Flock of God, and it is supposed to be a secret book that is only given to elders. The majority of witnesses do not even know that this book exists. The book is so shrouded in secrecy that they have specific rules regarding how they handle the book and who's allowed to handle the book, and more importantly, who's not allowed to handle the book. This is a letter to the elders regarding the book and its use. The information is designed for use by the elders only, and other individuals should not have the opportunity to read the information. It says, there is no objection if an elder personally spiral binds or laminates his own textbook, or does so for other elders. If he has another baptized brother who is not an elder do the work for him, the elder must watch while the work is being done. Outside companies, unbelievers, or sisters are not permitted to do this work. The material in this book is confidential, and the confidentiality must be preserved.
Yeah, this book explains that obeying Jesus as the head and leader means that you will obey the direction from the governing body and the overseers. So if you're listening to Jesus, you will listen to the men in charge. So that's pretty secretive, but also they've instructed their people to prepare for fulfilling their activities, meetings, and service in secret if the work is ever under ban.
Like it is in Russia right now.
In certain countries.
Yep.
But also in preparation globally when persecution causes the work to have to be done in secret.
And I can't even begin to tell you how many times I would have a conversation with somebody who didn't know I was Jehovah's Witness, and when they found out, they would always ask me, like, what goes on in those buildings? Because there's no windows. And they were always like, I've always wondered what happens inside our building.
Is it cloaked in secrecy?
Kinda. Are they following and venerating a human leader?
No. There's 8 of them.
Yeah.
Hey Siri, what's the definition of venerate?
Venerate means regard with great respect, revere.
Yeah. Yeah, they do venerate a leader, well, a group of leaders, a head of leaders, a leaders of heads.
Leaders of heads?
Yeah.
Local elders and members of the governing body take the lead among us. Hence, we should respect them and pray that God grant them the wisdom needed to govern the congregation. Please, God, let them make the right decision. When we as individuals respect the authority of Christian elders, we are obeying Jehovah, because elders are appointed by Holy Spirit.
There was a video circulating YouTube of the governing body walking to the airport, and crowds of people lining the walls, all clapping at them. As they walk through and shaking their hand. I remember actually one time at one of the conventions, Brother Let had come to visit, and people were going up and asking him to autograph their Bible.
Can you sign my Bible? Yeah, they've had to put several articles out, like, requesting that please don't treat the governing body like they're celebrities. Don't clamor to take pictures or shake their hand. They're nobody special. But when you put yourself in a place like that, that is a natural human inclination to revere,
respect, greatly respect somebody who's taking the lead. That's another word for it, right? Venerate? Yeah. If that's not what veneration is, I don't know what is. Pointedly, are Jehovah's Witnesses a cult?
Are Jehovah's Witnesses a cult? I think the evidence speaks for itself.